Welcome to the Vet Med Wellness and Leadership Podcast, where we discuss central challenges vet med leaders face, such as burnout, stress, and difficult interactions with clients and staff, just to name a few. In each episode, you will hear about actionable solutions that you can apply to your practice and invitations to connect with fellow leaders who are passionate about improving the wellness of the vet med profession. By subscribing, liking, commenting, or sharing this podcast, you are helping more veterinary professionals find the resources shared in these episodes. Thank you in advance for listening and supporting this show. I hope you enjoy it. All right. Hey, everybody. Crystal Stokes here. And joining me today is Dr. Jennifer Edwards, who is a renowned life and leadership coach, speaker, and former veterinary practice owner with over 25 years in the veterinary field. Her journey through the creation of a multi-million-dollar practice to embracing the path of personal transformation and coaching has equipped her with unique insights into professional and personal growth. With a passion for fostering consciousness and leadership, she empowers professionals to transform challenges into stepping stones for success. And today we are going to talk about designing your life through conscious choice and responsibility. What a mouthful. Jennifer, thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Crystal, for having me. I'm very, very excited for this.
Me too. I love this topic. And I think inquiring minds like myself might want to know, how did you go from being in the clinic, doctor on the floor, to becoming interested in this thing we call consciousness and in leadership? How did this even get on your radar?
Well, what's interesting is that it was on my radar before veterinary medicine was on my radar. Wow. So my interest in human behavior, human tendencies, the way we think, the way we process, actually started, in high school. My undergraduate degree was in psychology, and my plan was to get a PhD in clinical psychology. But then I don't know where it came from, but it's senior year in college, all of a sudden I got this idea to go to vet school. So I did. And what happened was that I never lost that fascination and that interest. And I just kept studying transformation, self-development, leadership, pretty much for most of my career, but really started focusing on it back in about 2007.
Okay. These are things where the phrase full circle, it shows up in life so often that I can't not smile when I hear it, because it really is like another one of those full circle stories where you started there, you went through these different transformations in life, and then you kind of come back home to it. It's been like a home base for you, it sounds like.
100%. And it has been such a huge part of my practice. So when I was a practice owner in, working with my employees, working with clients, just working with myself, honestly, just equally as much, and the skills of getting through and dealing with the stresses of business ownership and being a veterinarian, it never really left. I just didn't have it as a primary focus for my career as I do now. But it's so fascinating to me, because when people have the awareness of how they operate, what's driving their behavior, they become so empowered to become happy and create lives that inspire them and light them up. And I enjoy facilitating that. So
I bet you do. I see your smile just light up talking about it. Well, can we go to the dark side first and talk about what does it look like when we are doing the opposite? Let's say we're just moving through life rather unconscious. We're not making conscious choices or decisions. We're just kind of on autopilot, which I think many of us listening can probably relate to. Like, you wake up, you just grab that coffee, you hit the ground running. Your day is like a bunch of dominoes. Before you know it, it's over. You flop down in bed, you're like, woo, it's over, and rinse and repeat. So I'd like to hear either your personal experiences or maybe experiences you had with folks that you've worked with, and what you observe when you see people that have not tasted consciousness in making decisions.
So I think that this is very pervasive right now, especially in veterinary medicine, but really everywhere in society. And how it shows up is that a lot of people are experiencing a feeling of being stuck. They're very disempowered, not happy, either feeling, dissatisfied with their work. And especially in veterinary medicine, that is devastating because of what it takes to not only get into vet school, get out of vet school, and then develop a career. And then you get out there and you're in it and you hate it. You're miserable. People don't often perceive that they have a choice. It's like, well, I can, or she this, or he that, but I have my bills and and I have the student loans on top of it. It just becomes very much of an experience of a lack of power, a lack of ability to make any significant changes that would up-level someone's happiness or up-level their energy and their experience of life. And what happens is people just become resigned. It is what it is. Life just sucks. And then they just put their nose to the grindstone and off they go. And, either they just stay unhappy for a long time, or in some cases, as we know, it can spiral down to really catastrophic effects.
Exactly. Whenever I hear that expression, it is what it is, my radar goes off.
Yeah.
And I can't help but think, but is it? Is it what it is? Or do we actually have more power and autonomy and options here than we really realize? So if we kind of take that picture of what many people are experiencing, like you just described, and then we just I was thinking of like a storyline of where people want to go. So what is the feeling that you think many veterinary professionals are seeking that's not this day-to-day grind of, I'm stuck in this situation. I have bills to pay. I have student loan debt. I have this contract with corporate with my golden handcuffs that I can't get out of. This is my life for the next 20 plus years. It is what it is. And it sucks.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. So what's interesting is that there's two ways to look at the it is what it is, right? So one is extremely disempowering. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. Everything's happening to me, at me. I have no say. I'm miserable and I just have to suffer. Oh, well. So there's that extremely disempowering, what we tend to call victim mentality. Feeling of being, of a lack of being caused in the matter of your life. On the flip side, there's an extremely empowering version of it is what it is, because it just is. Whatever is going on in our life, there's circumstances, and sometimes circumstances just are, and we may not like them. We may like them. When we can be with what it is, for acceptance, not liking, not wanting, but accepting that it is what's so, from there, we can start to say, okay, but that doesn't work for me. Then you can say, well, then what does? Well, what I want is, and what I suspect a lot of people want, is to be happy, to not feel stressed and anxious all the time. There is no escaping that veterinary medicine is difficult, right? There's no magic wand that is going to come along and make this an easy job. It just isn't. Like it is, in an empowering way, it is what it is, and we chose it. And inside of choosing it, it's like, okay, I'm choosing this profession because I love it and that's what I want to do. And now, how do I need to show up every day? How do I need to be so that I can be happy in this profession, that I can have a fulfilled life? I can have a great relationship at home with family or partners. I can have fun with friends, and I can enjoy going to work, doing a difficult job, taking care of animals. So I think there's an expansion of understanding that you can accept what is and create an empowering and happy life.
I love that. It reminds me too of bringing more curiosity to the situation. Like instead of just feeling resigned, this is how it is, and this is what's happening to me in my life, to become curious about, well, what could it be, or where might I have some control or influence, or what ways could I adapt, or what needs to change, of asking those kind of open-ended questions that spark curiosity and help us think about things more broadly than we're probably used to. I think in medicine too, I can only speak for myself. I think that I always liked the confines of medicine of kind of feeling like there was a right or wrong answer. Like I remember in my undergraduate degree, which were mostly hard sciences, it's like you pass or you fail, damn it. It's organic chemistry. You did it right or you did it wrong. There is no room for creativity. And then in my master's degree, which was, counseling psychology, it was much more open for interpretation. And that was hard for my brain to do. Like the wondering and the creativity and options. And it's like, this is not natural. I like A or B. I like black or white. So do you find that that's something too that people in the veterinary community do struggle with, which is that kind of black and white thinking and is it challenging to start using this part of our mind to think more openly?
So I two different thoughts about all of that, because that's brilliant. I love that. So first, as far as the medicine part of it is concerned, what's interesting is that there actually is an uncomfortable amount of interpretation and leeway when we practice medicine. Now, you have a population of people, and there's exceptions, but just speaking in generality, who are science-based, who are highly academic, who study, know the answers, take tests, get into vet school, right? And then they come out into practice with this tendency for perfectionism. And there is so much gray. And then there's this fear of screwing up. So there's very little room for error, either in reality that you could, an animal could do poorly, but there's very little room for error as far as responses from the general public. So what happens with all of this gray, well, you could use this drug, you could use that drug. Well, here's a dose range, which it starts here and then triples twice a day, once a day. Well, how do I know? Well, which one should I use? How long should I treat for? Should I treat for a week? Well, should I also give this other? It's especially when your early years, it's crippling. So I think that actually tends to lead to more stress because people do want black and white. Now, as far as approach to creating a happy life and dealing with situations where someone might feel stuck or disempowered or lack of choices, one of the things I coach a lot around is energy. And there are different types of energy that we all experience all the different types. But when we show up to a given moment, when we're responding to a given circumstance, the energy that we bring will dictate how we perceive, how we think, how we feel, and then the actions that we take. And by definition, when we are in lower levels of energy, meaning that we're just experiencing either a lot of anger or resentment, or we're sad or disempowered, we do not see a lot of option. There's not a lot of creativity. There's not a lot of possibility. I love the word you used earlier, curiosity. When we take judgment away and we come at something with curiosity, all of that is higher energy levels. And from there, all of a sudden, the worlds expand, right? And that's one thing is like people don't see that there are options. They don't see possibility. And that's normal because when you're in a place of feeling stuck or unhappy, it's normal to not see options. I just want people to understand that it doesn't mean that those options are not there just because they can't see them.
I think that's such a nice, hope-giving message to remember that as you start to shift, you'll start to feel that openness happen. Could you also speak to the role of responsibility? Because I like that word a lot, like how being responsible can help resolve a variety of challenges and lead to more fulfillment.
Yeah. I would make the bold statement that taking responsibility for your life does not help resolve some challenges. It defines your entire life. That is, in my opinion, the ultimate gift that somebody can give themselves. Because in the moment that you say, I am 100% responsible for my life, I am cause in the matter of my life. I create and design my life, period. You It's not fun because now you gotta like do stuff and then you gotta, do some work and you gotta look inside and maybe deal with some things that aren't very pleasant. But in that moment, you take back your power and your happiness no longer is up to him, her, it, they, circumstance, like nothing. And it is not about that things are your fault. It's not that you're, so I'm to blame for everything. It's not about fault. It's not about blame. It's about setting me, like, and this is how I live. This is exactly how I live, almost to a fault sometimes. Everything is, how can I be responsible? And the moment I decide to look there, it's like, oh, I can shift this. And then I don't sit around with fingers crossed, hoping that somebody else is going to miraculously change so that if they do, I can be happy.
I love it. Well, it's like we were just chatting before we hit the record button behind the scenes. You and I were both chatting about our schedules. We're both very busy days. And it's easy to say, oh, I'm such a victim to my schedule. That's the reason I can't go on my vacation for X number of months because, my schedule, it's so awful. And we were talking about how that's really not the narrative at all. It's that we create our own schedules. We decided everything that is booked on my calendar this week, I booked it there. I decided, I said yes or I said no. So that schedule is something that I am responsible for. And if I book out my schedule in such a way so that I don't have a vacation for X number of months, then that was a choice that I made. I would like to know, can you give an example of maybe how you've seen this come up in your work or common themes that you see with your clients where they might be having that aha moment around, oh, I am responsible and that actually feels empowering. Can you share one or two?
Yeah. So the ultimate responsibility, the biggest ahas that I would see is when people realize that they can have responsibility for how they are responding and showing up in a moment, right? That is the pinnacle. That's our goal. Okay. So it's the face changes when I coach people on Zoom and when I just see that, like the brightness, they physically will sit up in their chair and smile and lean forward the moment they realize that they can get to a place where they can shift how they show up and change outcomes. If I were to give a specific example, gosh, there are so many. One example would be, I'd say for me that I can think of. So way back when I'm probably in the middle of my tenure as a practice owner, so maybe, 8, 9 years ago, maybe 10. And I was not happy. I was, dealing with equipment's breaking and the employees this and the clients and, the work schedule and, basically being a doctor during the day, running the practice at home at night and on the weekends, missing my daughter growing up when she was really little. And, it sucked. I'm not going to lie. And, the more I mired in that it sucks, that I wasn't happy, that I was stuck there, the worse it got, right? Because what we focus on expands. And that was the energy that I was bringing. It was either, victim to it or pissed off about it. And one day, a little voice in my head, I have this little coach that rides around with me and says, Jennifer, and I'm like, oh. And said, you're the one who chose to open a practice. You're the one who chose to become a veterinarian. And you're the one who chooses every single day to keep doing it. So what started to shift was me saying, that was true. Nobody's making me do this. And so once I started to own responsibility for the choices that I was making, I was like, okay, and I don't like this aspect of it. And that's part of it, right? I want to go swimming. Guess what? I'm going to get wet. You can't jump in a pool and say, but I don't want to get wet. You can't decide to open a veterinary hospital and have it not be hard or have certain parts of it be that you don't like it. So that was a pivotal point for me, because once you start owning responsibility for choices that you've made, you now own the power to have responsibility for the choices that you're going to make. And from that point forward, you start to pick and choose how things are going to go consciously. What's going to work? What do I want this to look like? And you start to steer the boat in a different direction and create what works. And everything started to turn around from there.
That is such a good example. I think it's very, very relatable. Yeah. I'm wondering too, like, as people are recognizing this, so the light bulb's going on, they're like, oh, okay, I can see this in my own life. And now they're thinking, well, I do want to make more empowered decisions. Like, I would like to change my schedule or cut back here and readjust things there. What are some of the obstacles you see that we commonly face when we're trying to make these decisions and have more like empowerment in our choices?
So there's so many. We basically have what we call energy blocks. And when we go to try to shift a situation in our life, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, it could be in a relationship, it could be your health, it could be your work, whatever. A lot of times we have certain beliefs, whether it's beliefs about ourselves, beliefs about the world, beliefs about things that we can or cannot do, beliefs about what other people will allow, what the world will allow. I mean, it's on and on and on. And we see those beliefs as truth. And as long as we hold those beliefs as truths, and little secret, they're actually as truths, they stop us dead in our tracks. Those ideas, whether they're beliefs about ourselves, they're limiting beliefs about the world, when we start to gain the awareness of how we made them up or what we're subscribing to, and then start to look at alternate ways of viewing a situation, what was 100% true a moment before, all of a sudden isn't true anymore. And in that moment, it's, little steps at a time, that in that moment, all of a sudden, the gateway opens up. Oh, I didn't realize. I didn't think that I could approach it this way. The other thing that's amazing is as we start to create these tiny shifts, we start to view things differently, the people in our lives start to change. Not because we're changing them. It is amazing. I had one client who was having issues with her husband. And when we started working together, it was, I really don't want to get divorced, but I think we're headed there. He this, he want that. We can't have a conversation. And as I started to work with her on how she was showing up, it was amazing. She came back to one call. She just, I can't believe it. My husband asked me if we could sit down and talk about things. She goes, I thought he would never sit down and talk. So it's about starting to let go of the things that we hold on to that basically just stop us in our tracks. We clear out, move forward, and that anything is possible.
I love it so much. I can imagine so many of the obstacles that we face. An example from my own life, I go back in time was, and I think many of us in the helping professions have something similar to this, which is if I make X or Y or Z change for myself, let's say I'd like to cut my hours back by 5% so that I could have some time to do something healthy for me or to have that time to spend with my family or friends. Then the belief that comes in is you're going to be letting people down. You're going to let patients and clients down. If you don't work pedal to the metal all the time, 24/7, bad things will happen to them, and I think that that's a very scary, real feeling. And in order to make the shift out of that, we have to test it and be willing to experience, well, what if that is true? What would happen if some people were let down? And then the next belief might be, well, I couldn't survive that. I would clearly implode, burst into flames if I let somebody down, right? Like that. Right. What does that mean about me if I let somebody down? And we forget to ask, well, what does it mean to let ourselves down or to let our family down? We're always letting somebody down. There's a trade-off no matter what we do with our time and energy. There has to be, an upside and a downside. And I think that's hard, take the time to think through those things and to feel it inside of ourselves. What would it mean to make this decision or this change?
That is such an amazing point. People are riddled with guilt they're guilty about something that they haven't even done and about imagined responses for other people. The one thing I will say, we are not responsible for the reactions and responses of other people. If a person chooses because they thought it through and they can afford it and they need it, even if they can't afford it, they need it, and they want to say cut their hours back in that situation, we would hope that other people wouldn't be upset. And if somebody else chooses to be upset, then they have the right to be upset, and that is their work, that is their journey. We are not responsible for other people. I would also offer that so many times that we think other people would be upset, they're actually not. They might say, it's about time. You didn't take it on for yourself. And then the people are like, really? You're not? Probably not. And then, oh, that's funny. So, I think we need to, one of the things I used to say when I owned my practice, because I can be a people pleaser, I can be a conflict avoider. And having those tendencies at the same time of trying to manage people doesn't always work out. And imagine the kind of the paradigm that I created for myself was I had this imaginary little, I don't call it a wall, not like a barrier wall, but a little wall. And or a fence. There was my side of the fence and your side of the fence. I was responsible for my side of the fence. So if I was going to make a decision, I needed to make sure I had all my boxes checked. Was I upholding my commitments? Was I honoring and respecting people? Was I being true to myself? Was I being, authentic? Like whatever is there. Like, can I, at the end of the day, know that I am whole and complete on my side? It's not about saying, screw you. No, it's about saying, here's what I need. And do I have all my boxes checked? And as long as my boxes were checked, then I would go forth with my decision. Now, on the other side of the fence, if somebody chose to be upset about it, then they choose. Now, I'm here. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to support you. I'm happy to give you space, whatever you need for me to help you deal with your upset. But I stopped owning responsibility for other people's upsets. And it's extremely freeing. It's like, get the weight off. It's like, oh my gosh.
It's so liberating. And the thoughts that are coming to my mind, I'm trying to not make this clinical because this is not a clinical podcast, but if they're going to say, I'm just thinking through so much of what we do, like in marriage and family therapy, and just helping people with communication and conflicts in general, that there's a lot of research that's been done on the codependency scene. And I think that a lot of people, when they Google that phrase, they'll read up on it and say, oh, wow, like I see those tendencies all over the place. We see them in our family. We see them in the workplace. I think the United States has a codependent nature about it, like meaning that I want to take care of your feelings so I can feel okay. We just do that naturally, and we don't realize that can actually be quite a trap and doesn't let us have these authentic exchanges. It doesn't allow us to live up to our values and communicate those values and deal with the conflict that may ensue. And then best of all, my favorite part is to work through the conflict. I think that's a lot of what you're saying too. And what you're describing is, sure, there might be a rub to a decision we make or something that we decide to change, but the conversation doesn't stop there. Like, we're in community with other people. And I think that's where that whole coming back full circle to the beginning of what you're saying, being really conscious in your life and in the way you lead your life can help you know how to navigate those next steps. There's just that message you're relaying. What really lands for me is about just being in touch with yourself, being awake to your life, being responsible for yourself in your life, and then having the courage to step by step, little drip at a time, take actions in that direction that are aligned with what you're awake to.
100%. And to take it even a step further, and I'm not going to pretend that this is easy. And it's easy for me to sit here saying this now, but in the moment, it's not easy. But consider that when we show up authentically, we are a gift to others. Because we are, number one, being honest. We are expressing our true feelings and allowing somebody else the space to be upset. You're not doing anybody any favors by tiptoeing and dancing all around, trying to prevent them from being upset. It doesn't work anyway. They end up upset about something else. And when we show up authentically, we allow other people the space to show up authentically. Now, if that authentic expression for them is that something you're doing is upsetting, okay. You want them to give you the space to be you, give them the space to be them. And now you can, like you said, have a communication, work it out together. But the dance, I mean, boy, I've been there. I've done that. It's so many clients. We do like, the dance, tiptoeing around. And, if I do this, if I do that, I won't make them upset. It does not work.
Feels exhausting. I so have enjoyed the message you're bringing, because it really is uplifting. It's empowering. And coming back to like the title of what we were discussing today is like how you redesign your life, like redesigning your life through this conscious decision making. Are there any best practices or kind of top takeaways that you would want people listening to today to leave here with? If they're like, hell yeah, I want to redesign my life consciously. I want to get started on this. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. This sounds pretty good. Anything that you'd want them to really leave from this podcast, remembering it's burned into their brain?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, like I said before, is about taking responsibility, because until you're willing to do that, there's no point in doing anything else. The way we know when we're not taking responsibility is when we're shaming, blaming, or complaining, right? So as long as, well, he's this, she's that, or, it's my job, blah, blah, blah. So that's number one. And number two is to cultivate the self-awareness. Remember that in any moment, us as human beings, our minds have a certain view that we see as true. And everything that we see as true is only true until it's not the next moment. And as we cultivate awareness, possibility opens up. My suggestion, and this is something I've been doing for over 15 years, is to get help. Whether it's working with a coach, whether it's going to a seminar, reading books, or all of the above, you cannot often see these things, these things that stand in your way, these beliefs, this disempowerment is subconscious. It's running in the background. It's running your life. It's dictating the show. And it's only through little moments of cracking that door open that we start to go, oh my gosh, I had no idea. And the light bulbs start to go off. But one coach that I've worked with, and I say this all the time, this is my favorite line, worked with him forever. He would always say, Jennifer, you can't see your own eyebrows. And it's only like, yep. And that's what other people are here for. With therapy, there's so many modalities that people can get help. Other people can be your mirror. And with that, I promise, things will open up. Possibility, opportunity, so much will become expanded. So
I think that's why people like us do this work, because it's so fun to get to facilitate other people feeling that again, like to reconnect with themselves and feel like, oh my gosh, it's like to watch the light bulbs go off is probably one of the most rewarding things that, at least for me personally, I can do. I'm assuming for you, it's the same.
It is unbelievable. When I get on a call with one of my clients and, just again, I look a lot at energy and it's a lot of it's on Zoom, so I can see them, and there might be a little, I'm good. Yeah, things are right. I mean, I have a situation, and even their posture, their body language, they're slumping down in the chair. They're just like, crying, not miserable, but just bit. And when I start to see that shift, that transformation, just over the course of one call, and at the end, when we're saying goodbye, they're smiling, they're sitting up, they're like talking louder, and they're like, all right, and I'll say, what's one nugget from today's, call, and then they share what they got, and they're so excited, and I can't even explain that feeling. It's like I'm just beaming from my heart. It's like this people did that for me. Years and years of coaches I've worked with, programs I've gone to, you name it. Back in the day when I was starting to cultivate this awareness, those people did this for me. And so now that I get to bring this for others and help to open up possibility for their happiness is just a privilege, and it's a gift.
It is. Well, we are lucky to have you as part of the vet med profession, bringing in these awesome skill sets that are so needed. And for those that are listening today, if they want to reach out and get in contact with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
Well, there's always my website, which the link will be in the notes, but it's simply drjenniferedwards.com. I am also on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the places. So feel free to reach out. And I also always love to have conversations. So if anybody ever thinks, when I like coaching, would this help me? Go to my website, click the link, no cost. We can sit down, we can have a conversation and discuss what's possible.
That is a beautiful invitation. I hope those listening today will take advantage of it. And, Jennifer, I've enjoyed this conversation so much. Thanks for making the time to be on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's truly been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining me today. I hope that you feel stoked after listening to this episode. And as always, I would love to hear your comments and feedback. Is there a topic that you want to know more about? Please let me know. And thank you again for subscribing and sharing your favorite episodes with others. It really means a lot.